Well guys, welcome to another episode of Stalking Shadows. Got a beautiful sunset happening behind us, and this is going to be quite a fun episode to tell you guys about. This happened while I registered as a outfitter, and the whole idea when I started the company was to be an outfitter and try and still do a few freelance hunts, going through the season, because obviously being a new outfitter, you're never going to book enough clients bang straight off the bat to get you going for your year after year, either return clients or new clients. And being a new company, I couldn't go out and go market. Obviously you need a lot of backing and funding. Social media was a very small portion of our marketing, back then. So we established my company in 2012. It was still under the name of Wayndell Safaris. Now it is under the name of African Brother Safaris. So this is early. I think I want to say it was about 2014, maybe 2015. I managed to do a freelance hunt with another company, and I met a great dude by the name of Kris Cantrell, and he owns a gun company or a precision rifle building company, Cantrell Outdoors. And his safari started off a little rough by getting to the airport, and he couldn't fly with his weapons. So when the outfitter said I need to come and pick up the client, I couldn't pick him up because now he'd been delayed by 2 days. Chris's dad and mother had arrived. Ron came out, so they had started their safari with the company owner, and I sat eagerly waiting to meet Kris. And eventually when Kris arrived, we headed out straight away off the bat. The man was eager. He was ready to roll. He didn't need to go to the shooting range. He just wanted to get hunting. So he pulls out this beautiful 300 Ultra Mag that he'd custom built himself with the Leopold scope on it. And he gave me the rundown on, what he'd done to it. And we headed out to hunt a zebra. So the property that we stayed on was where we were going to hunt zebra. We could hunt impala, warthog if we saw any decent warthog. There wasn't very much available quota-wise on this piece of ground that we were staying on where the lodge was, but we would travel out, day after day looking for the species that Kris was after. So that afternoon we headed out when he arrived straight off the bat. And if you guys follow Bear Country Outdoors, Kris is one of the guys from Bear Country Outdoors with James and Doug. So I'd say head on over to their podcast channel and you'll hear him talking about a couple of things that happened in his safari. So make sure you find them on YouTube and go and have a listen to their podcasts. They do a lot for the hunting industry, and they're fighting a lot of battles that all the hunters should be getting involved in to keep hunting going for the rest of the hunters throughout the world and throughout your province or state or wherever you live. We got to fight to keep hunting as part of our tradition and what we want to do, going on and handing it down or passing it down to our kids for years to come. So we head out this first afternoon, and we get onto, I'll never forget that we just drove the pickup over, and my tracker tapped on the roof and he said, "There, the zebra." So I peeked out, I said, "There, the zebra," and we were looking at it. And Kris climbs out and he loads up and he says he wants to shoot it from there. So remember, as a guide, guys, we always want to get the clients close. It's part of the hunt. We want to get close. And around this time, 2015, a lot of long range hunting or long range shooting was becoming popular in the hunting circles. I'd only just met Kris. This guy just got off a plane. I didn't even know how he shot at the shooting range. He literally climbed out the truck and he said, I'm going to shoot the zebra. The zebra ranged out at 720 yards. And I still said to Kris, hang on, I've got to try and sex this zebra at 720 yards away. There are 2 of them there or 3 of them there. Now I need to pick the stallion for you to shoot. Because if we make a mistake here, it's on me. So I got Kris all set up on his bipod, and I'm like, and the trackers are busy shaking their head on the back of the truck and going, this is crazy. And he says, can I run a camera? I said, no, well, he told me where to hit record. I'll hit record. And I'm busy glassing. And I eventually tell him, okay, right, the one that's walked out to the right, that's the stallion, the other's the mare. And he takes his time and he just squeezes that shot off, and that damn zebra falls right there with that 300 Ultra Mag shot. As Kris says it in their podcast, a perfect high shoulder shot with these burger bullets. And for me, that was a first, because zebra are animals that tend to soak up a lot of lead if you do not hit them properly. And this goes to show that Kris had done his homework coming out to South Africa, getting the correct bullet, building the perfect rifle. And the best part about all of this is he could shoot his rifle. So those are like the main things that I would say to anyone coming out to SA is practice, practice, practice. Practice of your shooting sticks, use your bipods, shoot far, shoot. Because in South Africa, close shots for us are around the 200-yard mark, everything stretched out. If you get in within that 200-yard mark, you're really lucky. And a lot of the American guys hunting, before this long-range shootings come out, hunting from tree stands is 80, 100, pushing 200. So get to know your rifle and what its drops are. And Kris showed the perfect shot there on what his rifle could do and the capabilities. So it was like high fives all around and super, super stoked. At the same time, Ron and the other outfitter were driving around also looking for a zebra. We came across, the group split and came down. There was another stallion, and we managed to correspond with the outfitter, and he came down with Ron, got Ron set up, and Ron smoked his zebra, boom, down there. So it was quite an awesome afternoon, Kris arriving and being able to be part of his dad shooting his first zebra and him shooting his zebra in a very close space of time. So that was a cool experience and a great way to start this safari that had a bump in the road, on the way there. So we head back that evening. We have a great feast at the lodge. Really got to know Kris. He was telling me about his daughter that had been born, and my brother also had a daughter around the same age. So we were chatting, what the little kids were up to, and just getting to know the guy and getting to know his mom and his dad. Great, great family. And it was a start of an awesome, awesome safari. So our next morning, we head out, and if I'm not mistaken, we went after kudu. So we decided to all go and hunt one property. The outfitter had a property to hunt, kudu and eland. And we headed on out there and we started our safari. And myself and Kris went one section of the ranch, and the other guys went the other section of the ranch. This ranch was probably about, I want to say it's about 20,000 acres. So we were opposite ends and we were hunting. And myself and Kris bumped the first kudu that we saw, a really nice bull with flaring out horns. Never got a crack at him. And then we went up this one roadway, and there was this tiny little draw. And the tracker just spotted some horns just disappearing through this little draw. So we hopped out the pickup. We made a little stalk through these trees. And what we've got there, it's like a kind of what we call elephant plant. It's a speckworm, and it produces the cleanest air out of any plant in the world. It soaks up something like 90% of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's an unbelievable plant. But when you're walking through this stuff that's sitting like waist height and you're brushing against it and you're hunting on a hunting ranch that hasn't had stock on it for years and so on and so forth, I started seeing these tiny little red dots all over my shirt as I'm walking in front. And I looked down and I said to him, Kris, there's pepper ticks. So I started dusting them off there. I said, just keep checking yourself, keep dusting yourself off. And eventually we made it to a spot where we spotted this bull coming out. And Kris was there to shoot long distance, but obviously you got to take the opportunities where they are. And I got him set up on the shooting sticks. It was by no means a long shot. It was like a 200-yard shot. Kris didn't hesitate and smoked this beautiful kudu bull, old bull. And it just went down, one shot kill. And we managed to get on over, get some nice photo. It was quite an easy retrieval, not too far from the pickup. We got loaded up and we started the rest, carried on with the rest of our hunting. By this stage, I think the outfitter and Ron had shot their kudu bull, which was really cool. So that was the 2 kudu bulls. And then we were after eland, and there were eland on this property. So we bumped the eland and we tried to do a quick stalk, but there was very little tree cover to get behind. So it was kind of one of these, let's head in a straight line, one behind each other. So if you ever come and hunt here, guys, if you can walk directly behind your PH, it makes the animals less wary. You're staying in a straight line, walk, stand, walk, stand. If your PH is walking and standing in the shadows, always sticking to the shadows, it's a great thing to make sure that you follow right behind him. And Kris was doing a good job of this. And we got set up, if I'm not mistaken, it was probably going to be about a 600-700 yard shot on a big eland bull. And he just managed to give us the slip. So he was done. And then we hopped back in the trucks. And while we were going around looking for these eland, Kris and I were going in our own mission the one way and the outfitter the other. And all of a sudden we went down in this little dip. And that's when my truck decided to stay. It just cut out. So now Kris's trip, flights over, was an absolute dog show, and he managed to get there. His first day with his PH was good in the afternoon. His second day with his PH, the truck breaks down. So we end up with a dead truck in the bottom of a valley. And I managed to walk out to the top of the hill, get some cell phone reception, phoned the outfitter. He managed to get all of the manager of the farm, and they came with the Land Cruiser and we hooked it up with a strap, and they towed me all the way to the top of a hill. Now, to go get out the property, there's a cliff face with the zigzagging road cutting down it, and he disconnected us there, and we had to freewheel this truck down the hill. So I said to Kris, but I suggest you climb in, into the Land Cruiser that's gone in front. If anything goes wrong, you must remember the steering, we only got steering, but it's as tough as anything. And the brakes, it feels like you're jumping on a bungee, trying to pump the brakes to try and get the brakes to stop. It was just these hard brakes. And Kris laughed. He says, no, buddy, if we're going down together. So he whips out his GoPro and off we take down this damn hill with this bucky going around the corner screaming while I'm trying to, take my arms and trying to turn the damn steering wheel. It was all the way to the bottom. It was a laugh a minute, but it was quite hairy. But once we got to the bottom, they hooked us up with a strap and they towed us back to the farmer's house. So that was part of our first first full day of hunting. And with this, we got back there, we dropped the kudus off, and we headed on. We climbed on the pickup with the Land Cruiser with the outfitter and Ron, and off we went, and we carried on looking for more eland. We didn't see any eland, and we spotted another beauty of a kudu bull. And this time, Kris got to dial in those sweet long distance shots. So we got set up on across a valley, looking at some big trees, and the kudu was eating out. I think if I'm not mistaken, the outfitter, I didn't have a rangefinder at the time. I think between him and Kris, they ranged it between 550, 600. He kept moving. And then I think he stood and he was eating in the tree at about around like 570, round about there. And Kris lined up his shot. It was a tricky shot because he was a little away from us eating in the tree. And Kris let off that shot off his bipods and he hit this thumps that kudu really hard. But what's even more impressive, this kudu turned and started running down the valley. And Kris managed on the run at that distance to pick that kudu up and smoke it a second time. Now that to me was super impressive because now you're looking at about a 600-yard shot and the kudu was on the run and he thumped it with a second shot, little behind the shoulder, and the kudu went and stood and got a bit ill. We made our approach down there. If I'm not mistaken, the outfitter got ahead just to make sure that the kudu didn't get away from us, and we got in there. And by the time we got in there, the kudu had expired on the spot, and we took some awesome pictures, and we got a beautiful second kudu bull on this day. So we loaded that all up. By this stage, my dad pulled out there with the mechanic. They came and hooked up my truck, took it to town, and he lent me his old single cab white Isuzu Bucky. So myself and Kris hopped into this, and we loaded the 3 kudus on the back, and we headed back to the lodge for the evening after having a really, really great hunt. So with that, we started our next morning. We headed out to go and look for bush bucks. So this time we went to, was it that farm? Yeah, we went to the outfitter's property and we looked for bush buck. And I won't forget, we were glassing one area all together, and there was a yellow-billed duck in the dam, and it was at about 800 meters. And Kris said, no, he wanted to take a crack at that because we hadn't seen anything. So I said, no, go for it. And he just missed this tiny little yellow-billed duck in the middle of the dam. And he was, like, I shouldn't have missed that. I'm going, holy smokes, but that thing's the size of a loaf of bread, and you're trying to shoot it at 800 meters. Anyway, so that afternoon we head to another spot where we spotted the oldest bushbuck ram I have ever seen. Like really, really old. He was actually yellow in color. He was so old. And we ranged him at about 680 plus meters. And Kris got set up there and he took a shot. One shot kill again, guys. This man knew his rifle and he knew what he was coming out for. And our hunt was just rolling one after the other. So that was that day. We headed back to the lodge and we were chatting there. The outfitter brought out his, I think he had a 300 short mag in a Boyd stock. And you know, like hunters around the fire, we're all saying what shoots better, what's going to shoot further. And, you know, so I think it was the next day we ended up in a bird box. It was a kind of a bird viewing, but it was also a blind set up on a cliff looking down into a river, and then across the river there's these open grass plains. And the outfitter said, come, let's go shoot some impala. So we went there, and I think I was videoing for the guys, and Kris was set up and the outfitter was set up on, I think there were 4 impala rams there. And if I'm not mistaken, Kris shot first, dropped his one. The outfitter shot second, dropped that one, and then Kris shot the second one straight after that. So there were 3 rams lying dead in the field there, and also they were around 300, 400 meters, and that was like, if anything was in that distance with Kris, it was stone dead. There was no ifs and buts, but he was impressing me more and more with this long range shooting. So the next day we planned to go after fallow deer and red leche for his dad, and that was the plan. So we had to travel about 2.5 hours away to go after these things in the beautiful mountains in the Baviaans Valley. And we took off bright and early that morning. So this was really cool about this hunt because Kris was getting to experience things with his father. So we'd go and hunt together at these different places. And that's really cool when you come out on a trip like that. His dad had his own PH. He had me as a PH, but it was really cool. We could go and sit up in glass and help them point out where animals were when they were doing stalks, and being part of it was really, really cool. So we first went after the red lechwe, and we were set up, myself and Kris on the one side, and we could watch where the lechwe were coming out, and the other outfitter, he went and did his little loop and got to the top of the hill with Ron, and Ron smoked this red lechwe from the top of the hill like that, and it ran and it went and expired in the river. And we went down there, took some awesome pictures. But this property was quite unique because it had red deer on it, your red stags. And Ron was quite keen on hunting one of these deer, because obviously the outfitter could get him a great rate. So we tagged along, which was also first time for me hunting one of these red stags. It's not indigenous to South Africa, but there are farms with them, and it's a learning experience for me as well to see what you're looking for. So the farmer sent us with, I don't know if it was a manager or friend, he came with, and he knew a bit more about the stags, telling us about the perfect crown that you're looking for on the top of the antler. And we went out and we found the group, and we managed to spot a bull. I think he had one of his points broken off, but the taxidermist said, don't worry about that, he could fix it up. And they picked a really, really nice stag for, yeah, it's no by no means a New Zealand stag, guys, but for South Africa standards, it was a really nice stag, and we were all part of it, and we got to see Ron smoke his red stag, and it was great for Kris to be there and be part of the photos and all the excitement. So we got that all loaded up and done, and we headed down the valley again to another farm where we were after fallow deer. And we spent the afternoon hunting there. We'd done all of this other stuff in the morning. So I think Ron was also after fallow deer. So this place has got some big mountains, guys. So 4x4 all the way to the top. We got to the top of this mountain, and it's a plateau, and you're kind of walking these ledges, looking down off the ledge, and then looking into all the little draws. We'd seen a couple of does here and there, and something made me walk just one direction. And I said to Kris, come with me. And we were walking while Ron and the other PH were looking the other side. And as I walked over the ledge and looked down below me, here was a stag. And it was like a matter of, seconds. It was a real close shot, chip shot. Kris picked up the rifle and he smoked himself a beautiful, beautiful chocolate fallow deer stag here in SA. So we've got some great pictures of that, the beautiful scenery in the background. But that wasn't our day over. We were on the top of this mountain and we had to head off the top. And on our way down, you never stop hunting until you get back to the lodge and nighttime, and off you go. So while we were heading back, we took one road back, and if I'm not mistaken, the other guys took another road back, but we were kind of going to loop up before we got to where we were going to skin the animals off. And as we were coming down, I spotted a really, really big bushbuck ram. Beautiful bushbuck ram. You'll see in the photos, this was last light. We had probably had about 20 minutes left, and set Kris up, and he smoked this beautiful bushbuck ram, but the ram disappeared. And when we went to go look for it, we looked up and down, we couldn't. And there was this culvert, water culvert, water ditch that had been man-made ditch that was made there. And the bushbuck was other side the ditch, and we couldn't find this bushbuck. And then eventually the one tracker climbed in the culvert, and he was walking along, and here he found the bushbuck lying dead in the bottom of this meter and a half ditch. And we had to pull it out there and get it all set up for photos with the dying light. So you'll see the photos aren't that great, guy, but what a beautiful bushbuck ram. So we finished up with a cracker of a day with Ron shooting 2 beautiful animals and Kris shooting 2 beautiful animals. So that was a real awesome day in SA for a hunter's perspective. So it was a nice 2-hour drive back home. And when we got back to the lodge, it was, time to to have a good feast. The outfitter's wife was there making some good meals for us. And then that evening, we decided to go out for some predator hunting, and we hunt darker, your nocturnal, more nocturnal species, darker, steenbuck, grijsbuck, all of those species we get to hunt at night on a property with the CAE. And we went out. I was on the back with the spotlight with Kris. So a bit of lamping. We didn't see any lynx or jackal that we were calling for. And then we spotted a really old darker. Kris shot that, and he had like broken off horns on both sides. Really, really, really old darker. And then when we were on our way back to the lodge, we spotted the creme de la creme of darkers. An absolute monster. And Kris didn't hesitate to put that on his list, and he shot that darker. And we got that all loaded up and headed back, and so he got to experience a bit of a night hunt. So the next morning, Kris and I were on our way to go and hunt red hartebeest on a property that was mine to hunt. And I said to Kris, I've got some exceptional red hartebeest on this piece of ground. So let's head off there. His dad hunted a red hartebeest with the outfitter on the property that we were on. But the crazy part about this day is, and I don't know if Kris will remember this, when we headed out, the truck in front, we were behind Ron and them, there was a leopard that had killed a bushbuck ewe right on the side of the road. The carcass was still steaming. So we spent a bit of time, pulling the carcass there. And it was really awesome to see that there were leopard right there that, had made a kill. And the guys, we unfortunately being the trucks at the back didn't see it, but we came on the kill. We could see and this was at 7:30 in the morning. The sun was up, and this was probably 300-400 meters from the lodge, which was really nice to see. So we headed out. We made our way to this property, and we started our stalk. And this place was known for monster red hartebeest. And I found a group, and we got all set up, and it was a nice long shot for Kris again, around that 700 yard shot, and he thumped it, and it went off and it disappeared. But the catch with these long shots, guys, that I was struggling with us as a PH, we can get to where the animal is quite quickly. When we're shooting close by, you don't get a little bit disorientated in the bush. So I had stood back, with Kris here, and I sent my tracker to go look for where the red hartebeest was. So I'd walked a little bit away from my spot, and the tracker was down there, and I was talking to the tracker across the valley. And my tracker's name is Mzumkulu, which his nickname is Nyech. But unbeknownst to me, he had told Kris his name was Kris. I'm busy trying to call Kris, the client, to get to where I am so we can head down to his thing. And the more I'm shouting Kris, the more my tracker's responding to me. And I'm getting so frustrated with that. I'm saying, your damn name's not Kris. I'm calling Kris, the client. You just keep quiet. He needs to hear me. And then he kept quiet, and Kris made his approach down to me. And by this stage, the tracker had got through the valley, and he had found the red hartebeest that we had just shot. So we got that all set up, and I looked at my tracker. I said, since when did you get a name of Kris? He says, no, I've been called Kris for a long time. I said, man, you're talking the biggest load of bull under the sun. I've grown up with you. Your father worked for me, worked for my grandfather. Your name has never been Kris. All of a sudden, you've decided to give yourself a name of Kris. So yeah, it was quite an entertaining day, and we headed on back. And this is probably now, if I'm not mistaken, around about day 5, day 6. And that evening, I won't forget, I was fast asleep up in my room, and Kris came up, and must have been early hours of the morning, and he said, dude, there's something wrong with me. I'm not well. The dude, he was running a high fever. Body was aching, and that first day that I told you guys about the pepper ticks that we got all over us, Kris managed to get those pepper ticks on him as well. And he had got a brilliant dose of tick bite fever. So that morning, I took him off to my doctor, and the doctor checked him out and gave him some meds. And we headed back, and he rested up that day because he was feeling quite green. Body aches, really, really sore. So we had a bit of a chill day there at the lodge, because the next morning we were heading out with his dad to go on a giraffe hunt. So guys, there are a lot of people out there that, you know, don't agree on hunting giraffe, and they have their reasons for not hunting. Until you've hunted a giraffe, guys, you haven't experienced giraffe hunting. Everyone thinks driving through a nature reserve and watching the giraffe, you know, from their cars, looking at you, not running away. Guys, it's a nature reserve. Nothing runs away from you in a nature reserve. But in the wild and in a hunted area, game reacts and responds the way it should react, not like it does in a reserve. And you must remember one thing, guys, there are reasons why we're hunting these animals, and that's why we are professional hunters. Guys have quotas in the years that every year there's a different quota and animals need to be taken out. And giraffe are exactly the same as hunting your kudu, your bushbuck, your, you know, impala, blesbuck, and everything that goes with it. They have to be hunted. And if you don't hunt them, what happens in the case of this giraffe bull and a giraffe bull that I'm going to tell you about after this one is the fact that they start killing the younger bulls because they're the dominant bulls. They spar and they beat each other to death. So hence the reason this old bull was past his breeding prime. He was ready to be hunted, and the farmer or the landowner had said he got this bull on quota. So off we went with Ron and Kris, and we started our hunt. We've had a bit of rain. The place was quite slippy and wet where we were hunting. We found the giraffe bull, and this day Ron, I think, took out a 416, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure Kris will comment in the comments there and correct me what weapons the guys brought over. But if I'm not mistaken, it was a 416, and he decided to take his giraffe with the 416. So giraffe body shots, guys, are extremely difficult to do. 9 out of 10 times they do end up in a gut shot because of the anatomy of the giraffe. You need to aim a lot further forward than what you would aim normally. And what happens is the bullet goes to the gut. And unfortunately, with this shot with the 416 that Ron took, the bullet wasn't where it was, and it wounded the giraffe, and the giraffe took off. He managed to put a second shot in it with his 416, which didn't slow the giraffe up, because by this stage he was, you know, running rampant. And to make a quick ethical kill, Kris whipped out his 300 Ultramag and handed it to his dad, set his dad up, dialed it all in. The giraffe went and slowed up for a brief minute. It felt like 10 minutes, but for a brief minute. And the next ethical shot is shooting the giraffe in the ear, behind the head. Ear is normally a big white patch to take out the big vertebra and everything that runs down the spinal column. And he spoke Ron through it, dialed it in, and Ron squeezed that shot off, and the giraffe fell right there. Super long shot on a smallish target, and Ron made a perfect shot with that perfectly built Cantrell Outdoors rifle. So that was a great experience. So now the trick comes to getting this animal loaded up, because when you hunt giraffe, you try and strategically plan to shoot it where the pickups can get, or a front end loader, or whatever the farmer has to help you get it loaded up. So we managed to get in there with the Land Cruiser and the trailer and a bunch of guys, and we got it loaded on like flatbed trailer, and we took it off to the taxidermy where they skinned it off for Ron's trophy. So that was our day done and dusted, and we decided to head back again for the lodge for a great feast, and chatted a bit more about how well this rifle, shot. We thought of doing a second giraffe there as well, but because of the time, we couldn't get a second one there. And I think it was a good thing that we didn't, because we put a day aside the next day to go hunt another giraffe that was causing problems, an old giraffe on another property where Ron and his wife came with, and it became another whole family day, which is really awesome. So we headed onto this property. We were shown where to go look. We took a little bit of a loop. We got onto a hill, and Kris was shooting a lot of his bipods, and unfortunately, yeah, in SA, guys, a lot of our bush is quite high. You either got to get set up way back on a viewpoint and shoot above it, or you got to use the shooting sticks that your PH carries, and then you have to, really get a nice clear shot, or be super steady for your long shots off those shooting sticks. So we saw the giraffe, and we popped out, and we could only get a shot off the shooting sticks, and it was quite close. So, and it was only the giraffe's head sticking out. So myself and Kris actually backtracked up the side of the hill and got set up at about 400 meters away, where Kris could get set up on his bipod. And Kris is one of these guys. He says, I'm going to shoot it in the face. Doesn't say he shoots in the head. He hunts a lot of bear back home, and he shot one in the face, and he said, Wayne, I'm going to shoot this giraffe smack between the eyes. So I said, if you feel comfortable, bud, by all means go for it. And I was super confident with his abilities and the abilities of his rifle. And the man set up there, prone, and that giraffe was just staring. He couldn't see us, didn't know what we were there or anything like that. He was just having a day in the sun. Unbeknown to him, his lights got switched out, and Kris smoked him smack between the eyes, and he fell right there. One of the most ethical kills you could get under the sun. He punched its lights out. So I wouldn't let guys shoot like that unless I was 100% sure the man knew what he was doing, because your margin of error is super small. You could take the jaw out, and then it becomes a massive chase. But the way Kris was shooting and the way he had that rifle dialed in, that was his giraffe down. So we had the day to get that all packed up and carted out. So, I forgot. There's one other animal. Kris was on a roll, and he shot quite a few species. I told you guys we went to go and hunt red hartebeest on a property that I've had available to me, and there were blue wildebeest there as well. So we went and had a look for the blue wildebeest, but there were no decent bulls in amongst them that I thought were worth hunting. But we spotted a beaut of a warthog, an old ass warthog, and he had literally just come out of his hole. It was a rainy, cold afternoon, and he just crept out of his burrow, and we spotted him there. And Kris smoked him with the 300 that he fell straight back into his burrow. So we got a warthog as well, guys. So you can see we're racking up the species. There are quite a few animals that I don't have pictures of that Kris hunted, because I left earlier in the hunt, and the outfitter took over because Chris's dad went off on a trip with his wife, and Kris carried on hunting. So instead of the outfitter keeping me on for the rest of the days, he paid me until a certain day, and then he took over the rest of the hunt with Kris. So there are some species that Kris got with the outfitter that I wasn't part of. So we got this warthog, and we headed back. So that was great. So we're racking up a list of animals, and I'm trying to sit here and think of what else did we go after. So yeah, after this day with the giraffes and stuff like that, we headed back to the property where we hunted the kudu to go after a eland. And Ron got his eland first, if I'm not mistaken, and Kris and I managed to find a lone eland bull all on his own with a nice brush on his face, and it was a trotting shot across the way, and we set Kris up, and he smoked this beautiful eland bull. you'll see in the photos, we actually dressed up as quite cold. It was a bit of a miserable rainy day. So we had some rain throughout this safari as well, which made things a little trickier. And you're not having those bright sunny days, you don't pick up animals as quickly as you do normally on safari. So with that, that was the eland out of the way, and we headed back to the lodge. I'm trying to think what else we shot. I think Kris shot extra warthogs. I know he shot a beautiful bushbuck with the outfitter. So he had 3 bushbuck down, and he shot a beautiful nyala bull with the outfitter. Kris and I looked at a nyala right at the beginning of the hunt, like goofy horn, but really long nyala bull. We didn't shoot him then, but he shot a nyala bull with the outfitter. What else did Kris shot? Oh, here's another one that I'm forgetting. We actually hunted lynx with the guys with the hounds, which is a super exciting hunt for those who want to hunt lynx. And it gives you a great experience of treeing an animal. So we went out the one morning, the dogs were out. They treed a cat, and Ron went after it. I think he shot it also with his 416. And we were all there, and the tracker was carrying the camera and video recording while we were getting through the bush. And then when Ron shot his cat and it came out the tree, obviously we have to get over there and try and stop the dogs from ripping the cat up. And the tracker didn't realize he actually had the camera in his hand, and he shoved the camera in at the cat and the dogs while the cat was grabbing Ron's camera at the time. So we got an awesome cat there. And I think it was a day after that we ran the dogs again for Kris's cat, and we managed to find a really nice cat that Kris made a great shot on. So he got a lynx. What else was he after this trip? Man, there was so much, and it was such a jam-packed hunt for the number of days. I think I spent about 12 days with Kris. I think in total he hunted about 14. He was supposed to have been there for like 16 days, but he only hunted 14 days because he lost out 2 days with his travel when he came over. But what a great guy and a great family to have been lucky enough to be partnered up with him as a PH, having a guy who was really, really prepared for his trip, knew his weapons, shot well. He listened to his PH when we were hunting, which is a real strong point. Hey, Kris, you listened to me when I said, there it is, smoke it, shoot from there, you know. And that really makes a trip run smoothly. Even though his flights got messed up, my truck broke down on the first day with him, we still had a great experience shooting some really, really awesome animals on this safari. And I'm looking forward to catching up with him. He's coming out and hunting with that safari company again. So it'll be nice to maybe catch up with him with a beer. This year, I think he's coming out in September, and he's after some really awesome animals. So guys, if you are enjoying these, stay tuned, hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you can be first to all the videos that I load. And if there's anything you want me to answer, leave a comment in the description below and I will get back to you. So till later, guys, and this beautiful sunset in SA. Cheers.